Welcome to episode 19 of VR Roundtable. I am one of the hosts, Anthony, and I am, of course, joined by both Gary and Steve. We got Steve coming to us live from Louisville, Kentucky. Steve, how's it going over there, man?
It'd be going better if I can get off mute. It's going real well. It's the weekend, so always glad to be off work.
Yep, that's a plus. And we, of course, have Gary coming to us live from the UK. Gary, what's up? How's it going?
Oh, it's pretty good over here. Yeah, nothing really to report in general. Just a normal weekend here. So yeah, it's cool.
Alrighty, so we do have a couple of news stories to get into this week, and then we also have a little bit of what you've been playing. We might have a bit of a shorter show this week, but that's okay. The shows can vary in length. Let's see, is there any little updates we need to get into? Just a reminder that this episode is not going to be on Reckoner VR. So from this point forward, we are all VR Roundtable. So if you want to find us, that's where you're going to find us. But with the podcast, nothing's really changing, so that should stay normal. So I don't think there's any other little house cleaning things that we need to get into. Does anybody know of anything else?
Not really, no. I just want to quickly mention, I was going to say at the end of the show, but I may as well say it now. Thanks to everybody who's left a review for us on iTunes and some of these other podcasting services, because it really helps. It's not just, I mean, it boosts up the rankings as well if we get some reviews, but also it just helps give us a little bit of feedback on what we're doing right with the show. So we do really appreciate any comments people do leave for us. And I know it's taking your own time out to do this, but it really is appreciated. So I just wanted to quickly mention that.
Absolutely. And okay, so let's get into our first news story of the day. And one of the big news stories that we have this week is the Gabe Newell AMA, Ask Me Anything. He did this on Reddit last week, and there was some interesting information that kind of came out from that. I mean, nothing like super specific, but a few crumbs for us to cling to and to have some hope for. Gary, why don't you kick us off with that and kind of tell us what did we discover with this?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of things listed down. The first thing, I suppose the main thing that people picked up on was the fact that Gabe Newell did say that they're working at Valve. They are working on some VR games, and he did use the plural for that, games, with that. So a lot of people picked up on that. There's no details on these, obviously, yet, but we did hear at the end of last year, actually, how there were some, I don't know who it came from, but there's some news sources that said that Valve are working on a VR game at the moment. So hopefully this just clarifies it, and they've got a few little things in the works. We don't know exactly what these are yet, but we'll hopefully hear some of this in the coming months, hopefully by E3, if not at E3. So that'd be cool if we can hear something by the middle of this year. But yeah, there's really very little information on this. So the other thing I'll quickly mention as well was the fact that he mentioned about the lighthouses for the Vive, because they're working on some new versions of the lighthouses that use some fewer parts, and they're going to be, presumably they're going to be a little bit cheaper as well. So they're going to be released later this year, and that will help us all out, because if the lighthouses go wrong after any period of time and we can get these replacements, I don't know if there's any difference in performance of them, presumably not, but hopefully there will be a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, he also mentioned, I think, something about the new controller, that they continue to work on the new controller, and that they're working on the new controller simultaneously while working on these new game experiences. So they're kind of going hand in hand. A lot of times Nintendo does that when they come out with a new system that features some type of new controller. They are working on a game that really shows that off simultaneously. And so it kind of appears Valve is doing that. And like you said, we did know last year that Valve does have at least one game that was coming. We kind of heard a teaser on that, but now we hear games. So it's possible that there could be multiple teams working on games, which is a big thing. Steve, any comments on the AMA? Was there anything you caught in there, or any other little takes you have?
No, I didn't participate in it or anything, but you know, nothing that you guys haven't already covered. Yeah, we knew there was a game. You know, now maybe there's multiple games. Everyone knows it's going to be Half-Life 3. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So no, not much else to add. I'm glad he's doing it. I'm glad he's participating. But yeah, some more nuggets would have been some more morsels to snack on would have been preferable.
I would just say as well quickly about the because you're right, Anthony. You did mention these games along with the fact of he referred to it as the knuckle controller. But I just wonder if they are developing some kind of game, and it just made me think actually about Nintendo, how they develop some kind of specialized controllers to work specifically. I mean, I'm thinking of the Nintendo 64 with Mario 64. It seemed like they designed that controller based around that game primarily. And I just wonder if there will be any sort of variation in functionality of this new controller and the old one other than aesthetics. I mean, with the new controller, we did see all those pictures about how you can release it and use it as some kind of grip for picking objects up in virtual reality. But I just wonder if there's anything else that might come out of that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering that Valve, you mentioned the new Lighthouse, and then of course the controller as well. And apparently they're going to be bringing those out themselves. And they have released hardware before, but I don't know what their track record is on like price and availability and that kind of thing. It's kind of interesting that they're not actually partnering with HTC to have them manufacture this. Oh, one other little blurb I think that did come out of this is that there are other headsets coming that are going to be compatible with Steam VR later this year. There's a couple other headsets that are possibly coming. We don't really know what that's all about. But yeah, I mean, there is some interesting stuff, and it's good to hear that there is something coming from Valve. Like some people were like saying, "Oh, are we going to get Lab 2? Is it going to be Portal?" And someone specifically asked Gabe about the Portal universe, and his comment was a little bit cryptic, but it almost seemed like maybe Portal is a very possible option, like some type of Portal VR type thing seems really likely. I think if there was odds in Vegas for it, Portal would probably be the favorite for that. Okay, so another large news story that's going on, and this is something that's been developing over the last couple of weeks, and every single day we seem to be getting some new insight into this because we have executives that are taking the stand in the Zenimax versus Oculus lawsuit. Zuckerberg was on the stands. Palmer Luckey was on the stands. John Carmack. I believe Brendan Arib was on the stands recently as well. So they're not allowing actual cameras in the courtroom or electronic devices, but there are people that are going to these court sessions and they're kind of keeping track of everything, and Road to VR and Upload VR and some of the various websites out there are kind of keeping track of this. Steve, have you been keeping up with the Zenimax versus Oculus situation? What is your thoughts on some of the different people coming up to the stand and some of the things that have been revealed over this last week or so since our last show?
I've kept up with it very, very loosely, basically only headlines. I haven't really dug in and tried to read anything on it myself. So based on those headlines, one of the things that came out, and I know that you want to talk about it, a little self pat on the back with your predictions, was that, you know, the vetting period for the Oculus acquisition was kind of short. I think even maybe as little as a weekend. So, you know, I wouldn't have guessed that, but, you know, in hindsight and thinking about it, even if this cost them, say, I don't think they're going to, Zenimax will ever get awarded the $2 billion, but let's say they got awarded a quarter of that. So they got $500 million. Then that means that Facebook was able to buy Oculus for $2.5 billion. That, taking that opportunity and doing a quick vet may be better for them than having not had the opportunity to acquire it altogether and someone else snatching it up. So sometimes a quick vet isn't always bad if you still are able to make the deal, and they were able to. So I don't have enough information to really say what is going on. If Carmack, did steal some code and that's what's used, then I think the court will be able to snuff it out and award Zenimax something. But I still keep going back to the idea that even though Zenimax and the companies that it holds maybe was developing some software, they were not creating, as far as I know, and maybe you guys can chime in if I'm wrong, they were not creating a VR platform like the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift. They maybe was making some software that could be played on a platform, but they themselves weren't making a platform. So I would think, lawyer withstanding, I'm not one, that they would have to show and demonstrate that they were actually bringing that kind of product to market. And I don't think they have, and maybe they will. So what do you guys think?
Gary, you want to comment on any of the stuff you heard?
Yeah, just very quickly, really, because like Steve, I've been following the headlines. I've been reading a few of the articles about it. But when we commented on this on our last show, I think it came across just how little we know about the case. Now, how little everybody really knows about the details of the case, really, because there's very little information out there. But one of our viewers actually recommended that we go and listen to an episode of the Reverend Kyle podcast, episode 61. And I do recommend anybody who's interested in this case, they do go and seek that out, because it's a good episode. And I actually listened to it. It's he actually has a friend of his who happens to be a lawyer on, and they discuss this case. The problem is when this show came out, when that show was recorded, it was very early on. It was more or less when the Zenimax versus Oculus sort of problems were first announced a couple of years ago. So it was very much based on conjecture, but it gave a good perspective. The lawyer was given a good perspective on a lot of how it really revolves on the contract that Carmack had, and there's so much that depends on exactly how certain things were written down. But it's a good episode, and I recommend people do look at that. But with regards to what we've been hearing in the last week, yeah, I mean, with Carmack, John Carmack, Mark Zuckerberg, Palmer Luckey, and Brendan Arib have all taken to the stand and spoken various things. I mean, we learned from Mark Zuckerberg that the actual buyout in total was closer to 3 billion than it was for 2 billion, because they purchased it for 2 billion. Then they had a further billion that was for retention of key members of staff, and also for sort of milestone incentives as well. So all these little tidbits come out of it, but we still don't really know what it's focusing on. And there's reports coming out how it focuses on definitions of what makes code new. And I think we touched on this. Steve touched on this on the last time we talked about this on the last show. And it really is really sort of how you define certain things. And I guess this is just how the law works. A lot of it comes down to the definition of certain things, but it's interesting to watch from the sidelines. And I will continue just to try and keep as up to date as I can. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't really have too much sort of experience in these kinds of things. So it's difficult to comment overall on the details, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, one thing I remember, this is actually going a ways back. This was when Zuckerberg took the stand. He made this one comment about maybe we should investigate that, talking about John Carmack. You guys remember that one comment where it was like something, yeah, we didn't blah, blah, blah. Maybe we should investigate that. And it's like, really? It's like 3 years later, you haven't investigated every little thing that John Carmack has done. I found that quote to be really curious. And I don't know if he was instructed by the Facebook lawyers to pretend like he didn't know about it, but that doesn't absolve them of anything. Like, if they don't know, that's their responsibility. That's where the whole vetting thing comes in. And then on the subject of the vetting, it seemed like the Zenimax lawyers were really happy to talk about how quick that vetting process was. And they kind of really hammered that a little bit. And in the public comments, like people reacting to all these things that are coming out, one of the things that a lot of people were reacting about is, what was Oculus doing, or what was Facebook doing in the first place buying this hardware company? You know, because if you go back to like Facebook stockholders, like, I mean, Facebook shareholders, right? Was it really a good idea for Facebook to buy a hardware, manufacturer? Like, is that how they really needed to invest in VR? And so that's kind of, but it's one of those things where back when this was happening, everything was moving so quickly. And I'm sure that Mark Zuckerberg got a demo of VR and was really blown away by it, and then was probably extremely worried about Google and Apple and everything. So there was like this rush to like quickly grab a VR company. And he probably came to the conclusion that if they're going to be involved in this VR space, that the Oculus people are furthest along and more established. And so there was this quick desire to buy Oculus. But I did notice a lot of people were thinking, man, should they even have gotten invested in buying a hardware company? Did you see anybody talk about that at all a little bit?
I didn't, but I don't, not sure, it matters really. I mean, Facebook is a very, very big company that had I guess it was, a very successful IPO, and it's a popular brand, but they have to grow it, and they have to be somewhat radical in the way they grow it, because there's only so much they can do with Facebook itself. And when I say Facebook, I'm referring to the actual website or smartphone app, or however you go on Facebook. That's only going to go so far. If those shareholders want more growth and more return, they have to reach out, and they have to find new ways to get their services to people's faces, whether it be TVs or VR or automobiles or, soft drinks. Like they have to find a way to grow. And this is how they chose it. And it makes sense, because VR it can take you somewhere else. And if they can figure out a way to take you somewhere else socially with other people who are also going somewhere else, then that's the product, and that's what they want to go after. So for me, it makes perfect sense that they went after Oculus. Yeah, they were going to make some hardware, but it was a hardware startup, so there's nothing to say that they don't have plans to farm out that manufacturing to someone like HTC or some other Foxconn type thing where Apple has all their crap built. So I don't agree with whoever was commenting on that. This acquisition to me makes perfect sense.
One thing that I found interesting as well was the fact that just how hard Zenimax's lawyers were going after Palmer Luckey. Really, I don't know if you saw any of the comments, how they were more or less saying that Palmer Luckey was, I mean, it came across as if they were saying he was more or less irrelevant in the production of the Oculus Rift, and it was all down to Carmack. It was Carmack that did everything, really. And anybody who has followed this industry for any length of time knows that's not true. Palmer Luckey certainly had a lot to offer in the development of the Oculus Rift. You don't get the attention of somebody like John Carmack if you don't have that kind of knowledge. So it was just interesting to me how Zenimax's lawyers were going after Luckey, and from that point of view, I don't think that won them sort of any marks, really.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to their case, though, to try to make it appear that Luckey didn't really know what he was doing, was kind of cobbling things together, and then John Carmack was basically the savior that threw in a few lines of code that made the whole thing come together, the fisheye lens thing, and the whole deal there. But yeah, so we'll see how all that shakes out, but it's definitely going to be an interesting trial. The way I understand it is it only is going to last another week or so, and then it'll hit the jury, or I don't know how quickly this thing is going to come to a conclusion, but it's certainly interesting. Okay, so one of the next stories we have, now this one is my personal favorite story of the week, is our last episode we were talking about, it was kind of like a preview show for 2017, everything we're interested in for 2017. And at the very end, I brought up, like, what is the one thing that you really want in VR more than anything else? And I mentioned that it's putting my body in VR. You know, I want to see my chest. I want to see my shoulders, my arm. I want to look down and see my legs. I want to be inside the VR world, because I just believe that the immersion level will just skyrocket with that. And I honestly thought that this was something that would be maybe a year, 2 years, or longer away, because there is this one subreddit. It's the virtual reality subreddit, like the general virtual reality one. And I was in there, and you'll have devs that come in there and they'll talk about stuff. And I asked the question, like, what is it going to take to put our bodies in VR? And this one guy got in there and he was saying, well, you know what? It takes 28 points of tracking. And when I heard that, I was kind of devastated, because I was like, 28 points of tracking. When are we ever going to get that? You know, that's going to be, I mean, how, and then also like, oh, well, if you have 3 Kinects and you put 3 Kinects around, then that can put your body in VR. And again, I was like, that's not realistic, you know, to do. But this week, there was some incredibly exciting news. Cloudgate Studio, the company that brought out Island 359. There's 2 guys, 2 main programmers. They programmed the Brookhaven demo, the Brookhaven experiment demo, and then shortly after that, they left and formed Cloudgate Studio, and then they came out with Island 359. Well, what they did is one of the guys there posted a video where they have put your body into VR. And the way they did it was they were using 2 different Vives so that they could have 4 controllers. And so they had 2 controllers in your hand, and then I guess 2 controllers were strapped to the feet. And they have some type of algorithm that they're using that with just that information, it can pretty decently put your full body into VR. And they had a video of it. The guy was kicking barrels and throwing his arm out and doing all kinds of things, and it looked pretty damn good. Gary, did you happen to check this out, and what's your thoughts on this?
I saw the video. Yeah, it looked great, really. It seemed to work surprisingly well. I mean, I just wonder how much, because the way they presented it was more or less like this was a demo they just sort of knocked up in an afternoon, and this is the result. This is how well it works. So I'd be interested to see exactly how much work had gone into that, and also if it always works as well as it appeared to in that video, because they may have just caught the best part of that. And I don't know if they've got this level of accuracy, because when you look at the video, it's pretty much 1-to-1 with just these points of tracking that they had. It works so well, and it gives hope for, with these Vive trackers, if we can get some kind of tracking just on our feet and have the 2 Vive controllers, if it can work this well, then fantastic. That's what we all want.
Yeah, I think I think that's somewhat inevitable. We were going to start, we got the pucks coming out, so that would also be a good opportunity to attach some to our feet. And there have been I can't think of the name of it, but there was a game or 2 that I didn't personally play them, and I remember seeing video. Maybe the game never came out, but people had kind of Velcro strapped some of the Vive controllers to their legs, kind of like in the calf area, and was using that for feedback and walking somewhere. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I need to go back. I only was able to glance at it. I didn't get to watch the video in its entirety. So good on them. And we know there are a couple of talented guys, and some of the things they put out. I personally didn't like Island 359 too much, but what they did with Brookhaven and how they're furthering the field is impressive. So very good on them.
I was talking to the guy, to one of the devs. I kind of made some comments, and I said that somebody mentioned that you needed 28 points of tracking to convincingly put your body into VR. And one of the responses he had is that basically him and Jeremy, they have 20 years combined mocap and human biometric kinematics experience. And so these guys, they have some experience in this. That's why that little tracking looks so good, even with only 4 points of tracking. And so they're saying that basically what they did was, what they believe is that the little tracking puck that they're gonna come out with, that you could possibly have shoes that would have some type of little clip on it or something, and you just put the tracking pucks right on top of those. And that's how they're going to do it. So they were testing it with 2 Vives and 4 controllers, but the plan is, as soon as those tracking pucks come out, then they can actually fine tune it more. And I mean, just it's going to be awesome if we can actually get experiences this year that put our body into VR. Is going to be super sweet. Okay, so another story that we have is YouTube. Now, this is PSVR, and if you've been in the PSVR subreddit any length of time, there's always people saying something about when is YouTube going to get updated? When is YouTube going to get updated so that we can use the YouTube app and see 3D 360-degree videos and stuff like that. And just recently, you could go to certain regions and download the YouTube update, but it wasn't available everywhere. But supposedly now, the YouTube update is available everywhere. 1.10 is the YouTube update. And I'm going to kick it over to Steve, because Steve, you actually had a chance to try this out already, I believe.
Yeah, I played with it last night. So it's an update to the app. In the app, when you launch it from your PlayStation menu, it actually goes through the whole thing, like when you're launching a VR game, and it asks you to confirm your awareness. So from its design, from the app as a whole, it's designed for VR. Now, once you're in the app, you're still just kind of looking at things in front of you on a screen as you navigate the YouTube menus themselves and choose whatever video you're going to watch. So I played around with it, and so what it enables, it enables the 360 stuff, which I'm not sure if we were able to do that in any way prior. I don't think so. But it also enables some 3D, and how it enables that. So there's various 3D video technologies available. Blu-ray, like a 3D Blu-ray, it uses its own format. MVC is the second channel, but then there's some lower res alternatives that have been around a little bit longer, and it's called SBS, which stands for side by side, and OU, which is over under. So in my playing with it, it looks like you can do over under 3D video, and it works. It doesn't look as good as watching a, like, say, a 3D Blu-ray, through, on a 3D TV or something, because the downside, what it's actually doing is, if it's, say, a 1080p video, now it's lobbed in half because you have the over and the under portion. So you've cut the resolution in half there. And then, putting it through the PSVR, you've cut the resolution in half horizontally the other way. So you're dealing with probably 1/4 the resolution effectively, and then it's spread out over a dome, for the 360 effect, and it quite frankly looks horrible. But in experimenting, what did look good, even though it didn't have any 3D depth to it, is there are a few 360 4K videos. Now, the PSVR headset itself, it's 1920 by 1080, and that means it's 960 by 1080 per eye or whatever. But what happens, so 1080 video looks bad in most VR headsets, because they take that 1080 and they just kind of blow it out. So in any portion where you're viewing, you may be looking at a 500 by 1000 crop of that resolution. So the 4K, even though the PSVR itself isn't 4K, after it's stretched out to create the 360 dome, the crop that you're looking at, effectively where you're viewing at that exact moment in time, is a higher resolution. So I watched a couple 4K videos that were done really well, and it was by far the best video I've seen in VR. I was in a field, and some elephants came up and got close to wherever the camera was and reacted and stood around, made some noises and things like that. So it works, and I've been pleasantly surprised. The resolution, like the effect, like if I'm trying to compare it to, say, watching a Blu-ray or something on my theater screen or something, I would put it somewhere between DVD and Blu-ray quality. Certainly better than DVD, certainly not as good as a Blu-ray 1080p, but it was very watchable. And, if I traveled earlier this week for work, and it's something that, had I bothered kind of packing my PSVR up and taking with me on the road, I could see myself kind of like, hanging out in the hotel at the end of the workday, and I could watch a movie this way, I think. It'd have to be this 4K quality. So it's the first glimpse that I've seen that, okay, video is starting to become more and more serviceable.
Yeah, one thing I saw mentioned is this one guy, he mentioned the 4K thing, but he was saying that when you're in the PS4 YouTube app, like some of these videos do have a 4K option, but he couldn't figure out how to select that one.
So I saw that, and they say that the app itself is cropping it or limiting it to 1440p, but that's fine because again, it's a crop. So what we're effectively getting is we're seeing the same approach as what super sampling gives you in a rendered scene. Is it's still better. So there's certainly a benefit without question between the 1080p videos and the 4K videos. There was no such thing as a 1440p video, so I couldn't see the difference there. But the 4K videos were the few good ones that I saw were without question way better than the 1080p ones.
Yeah, one of the cool things is that subreddit. If you go to the PSVR subreddit, you want to try out the YouTube app. There's a ton of people that are posting different threads about, oh, check out this video, check out that video, and they'll have the little address to the different videos. But taking that address and then going over to your PSVR and putting the headset on and firing up that app, I wonder how easy it is to like search for things. This one guy was talking about, oh, I'm going to make a playlist. And then so if you could search for somebody's playlist, I don't know how that works to actually find the videos, but I will say that there's a lot of people that are trying all kinds of these videos and they're discovering that, okay, most of these videos are kind of crappy, but this one actually looks really good. And they're bringing up the different videos. One guy had mentioned there is a NFL highlight video where for a couple of seconds they put you right there on the field with players running around, and the guy said, oh man, that looked incredible, but it only lasted like 10 seconds or whatever. So I want to check out some of these videos. I haven't actually tried this yet, but I do want to check some of them out. I know that we've said in the past that 360 video is like, yeah, when you first get VR, like the first couple of weeks that you have VR, you might check out some of these videos, but you quickly get bored of them because they just don't deliver the full, what you really want to see. But
I would without question, if someone took, and assuming that 4K quality, like in the elephant video that I talked about, if someone put a camera down center court or center field of say the Super Bowl or one of my college basketball games, I would watch a full game that way. I think it would be unique, and I think it would be a great way to experience it. You can turn around, you can see the crowd behind you and all that. Like I think it's very serviceable. What they got to figure out now is for a television network or a sports network, maybe ESPN, need to go ahead and say, look, we got to put a high quality camera array. We need to get it down somewhere close to the court or close to the field. And, maybe they have a couple of them and they do a sort of a broadcast thing where they cut to different positions on the field. I would watch a game this way. Yeah, it's a little bit reduced fidelity, but the same theme that kind of applies for all the games that we're playing. The graphics on whatever game we're playing is certainly less, and the textures are certainly less than some of the high-tech flat games that we could be playing. So we take that hit to experience it in VR. So you could do the same thing with watching a game. Yeah, resolution is going to be a little bit lower, but it could still look good, and yeah, I think it would be pretty killer. One other thing to add, you were talking about the YouTube playlist. I believe you can build a playlist from your computer and then log into your account and access your playlist. But also what I did was I just went to the search field, and you use the DualShock controller to search. I just searched for 4K 360. And it had hundreds of videos. I sat there for maybe a half hour, and I'd watch the first minute or so of various ones. So there's a few of some girls in bikinis kind of dancing around the camera. I guess it's supposed to make it feel like you're a baller of some kind, making money rain on them. But those were really corny. So check it out. I think you'll think it's neat.
Yeah, some people were posting in that PSVR subreddit, not safe for work, and showing like little videos of girls dancing around by a pool or whatever. And then somebody's comment was like, this is so sad. And I was like, hey man, when you first get VR, that you want to check this stuff out. But I did read an article recently, actually. It was talking about that company Next VR. There's a company called Next VR. They have a contract with the NBA. And if you had a Samsung Gear VR, and if you had like NBA League Pass or some kind of package or whatever, you can get actual full NBA games in VR. The problem is you have to have Samsung Gear VR and you have to have this NBA package. And I actually emailed these guys. I sent an email to Next VR saying, hey, why don't you guys have like a little demo clip that we can download just so we can see what it looks like? You know what I mean? Just give us a little demo clip. I haven't heard anything back from them, but it would be nice if there were some demo clips out there. I know it's licensing is exclusivity, and you have different companies that are kind of greasing the tracks. They're paying some extra money to get some of this stuff. But yeah, sports could be huge. We don't really care that much about this 360 video stuff, but we're gamers and we're entertained by games, and we don't really need that until it gets really good. But your average Joe out there, this video stuff could really be huge. And I'm going to kick it over to Gary. Gary, any comments about, I know we've said it before, 360 video is kind of lame, but at the same time, there is some promise for those everyday Joes out there. What's your take, Gary?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I used, when I first got my Vive, actually, and I went back in just a few weeks ago, actually, Virtual Desktop, because you can actually just copy and paste a YouTube link within Virtual Desktop, and it will, for a 360 video, and you can watch these videos in the Vive. So exactly the same as experiences on the PlayStation VR, I would imagine. It's some of the videos are good, but they're still, for me at this stage, they're still more or less a novelty. They're cool to look at for a few seconds, and then you sort of quickly want to move on to the next one, and it doesn't really last too long at the moment. But there's a lot of potential there, and especially if you like sports, and I can certainly see the attraction of watching a full match or something like that through 360 video, definitely. But at the moment, for me, it's not really quite there. And maybe in the future, I'll go back and try again as they develop this kind of technology. But yeah, it's just sort of a novelty. I see it as a novelty at the moment.
Hey, you guys know that that little application that you can use for the Vive, Whirligig, the video thing?
I've heard of it, yeah.
That was recently updated. There was a pretty big update to that recently, because that's the one that I used when I first got the Vive, because Whirligig has a free version and they have a paid version. And I got the free version just to try out some different videos and check them out. But it was kind of janky, but hopefully this new update will have improved that. But I mean, the YouTube thing for PSVR, one of the cool things about it is we're talking about free content. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, a lot of 4K 360 videos, just like Steve was saying. There's, tons of them. You kind of have to sift through it to get the good stuff, but it's more good content. I mean, everybody with PSVR is kind of clamoring for more content, and this is probably not what they're really looking for, but it is some good content to kind of, you check on it every once in a while and you see a video that's done pretty well. Steve was talking about the elephants. I think he's mentioning, I think it's this company called Felix and Paul. They're a special video company. They did the one with the elephants and where you're like on a boat. This is the one I mentioned a long time ago where, it had that guy that was twirling the flames and it was all a dark background. It looked crystal clear, man. It looked really good. And I was saying if everybody's video looked as good as this Felix and Paul stuff, then, it would be pretty decent. But yeah, it's just more good content. So that's always good. Let's see here. Okay, so one little story I had, just a real quick thing here. I don't know if Gary or Steve, if you guys have seen this, but there is a new Oculus game that's going to be coming down the pipe at some point, and it's called Ultrawings. And I think it's Bit Planet Games, maybe? Yeah, Bit Planet Games has a new game called Ultrawings, and I saw some pictures of this game, and it looks really, really good. It's very similar to Pilot Wings. It's kind of like if you imagine Pilot Wings in VR, I know I mentioned before when I was talking about Eagle Flight, I don't know how long ago that was, but that Eagle Flight is kind of a flight simulator slash kind of pilot wing style thing, where as the Eagle, you're flying through hoops and, you know, doing stuff like that, kind of pilot wing style. And here's a game that is taking that to another level, and it's really going for the pilot wing style. And graphically, it looks beautiful. I mean, if those screenshots that I saw actually translate to the real game, looks really good. Steve, I'll go to you. Did you have a chance to maybe see any of the pictures of this one, or any thoughts about a Pilot Wings game in VR?
I saw pictures and I saw I guess the announcement or whatever. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I really don't have much to say. Kind of see how it fleshes out more. And I never played Pilot Wings in the past. I don't know why. I've heard of it. I know roughly what it's about. So I've enjoyed a lot of kind of cockpit games, if we want to call them that, on both the Vive and the PSVR. So, you know, I'm sure I'll check this one out too.
Gary, did you have a chance to check this one out at all or see anything on it?
Yeah, I did see the screenshots for it, and the graphical style looks very good from what I saw on the screenshots. And I've tried a few flight simulators in VR. I think there's one called DCS World, and some of these other ones, which are more. The problem I have with them is I'm not really into them that much, and there's quite a steep learning curve to get into these games. So, looking at this one, it looks a little bit more casual, something that you can probably jump into a little bit easier. So, I'll definitely be interested to see it when it comes out.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I am too. Is some of these games you got a million different gauges and little buttons and a million different things you got to figure out, and I kind of want, just get me up there, you know, where I can kind of move around and see what happens, kind of cartoony style. I've been a Pilot Wings fan for a long time. The Super Nintendo Pilot Wings, I got that one and I love that game. And if you have a 3DS, Pilot Wings on the 3DS is surprisingly good, especially with the 3D. And I think it's available for really cheap. It's one of the cheapest Nintendo games you can get on the 3DS. So check out for that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Ultrawings, this is not a major news story by any stretch of the imagination. I just thought it looked like a pretty cool game. So that's basically all that I have on the news. Gary, anything else you got, or is that pretty much it?
That's pretty much it from me. Yep.
Okay, Steve, any last stuff?
Well, I don't know how much this qualifies as big news for the industry as a whole, and I'm surprised Anthony didn't bring it up, but I know it's big news for him. Racket NX officially has a release date, January 31st. So 10 days out. We're recording this on, I believe it's Saturday the 21st. So 10 days and we get Racket NX. And I'm excited too, because I really like the demo. Probably not as much as Anthony, but you know, I think it's a fun game, and I look forward to giving it a try.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about that. And I'm curious to see what it looks like as a full game, because, you know, I've just had that one demo, but I've played like 6 hours just in that one little arena. So I'm curious to see if they do give you different backgrounds, different kind of styles. Maybe in that one demo that you have, there's kind of this snake that kind of goes around and you kind of battle that. So maybe they'll kind of have bosses almost in a way. And then multiplayer, there could be multiplayer as well. I'm going to be curious to see what the price is too, because you never know with some of these games. Are they going to come out with like $29.99, or is it going to be like $14.99 or whatever? You never know with some of these companies how they're going to price stuff. Gary, any excitement on Racket NX?
Yeah, certainly. I was actually just going to ask if the price had been confirmed yet, but obviously not. So that'd be the only thing with me. I'm not too sure how much I'll be prepared to pay for the game, because I enjoy it, but I don't think I like it as much as you, Anthony.
So I pulled the game up. I don't have the Steam library open, so I can't confirm if they've got a price or not, but I've got the announcement where they gave the January 31st release date, and it says it's going to come with a single player mode, a competitive multiplayer mode, an arcade mode that was previously known as training. So I guess it's what we played in the demo. And then it says a bunch of gameplay, visual, and auditory improvements since the demo was released in 2016. So yeah, that confirms the multiplayer mode.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into some what you've been playing. We have not done this in quite some time. Why don't I kick it over to Gary? Because Gary, I know that you've played Vertigo, which is a huge release. I still have not played this, which I know sounds crazy because I was like super hyped on the Vertigo train, and I just haven't got around to it yet. But Gary, go ahead and kick us off with some Vertigo talk.
Yeah, well, I'm in a similar position to you. I really want to get into this game a lot more because I haven't given it the chance that I really need to give it. But I've played only around half an hour so far, so I can give some initial impressions of it. And we played this demo quite a while ago, and the game itself is very nicely polished. It's got a nice level of polish, and the graphics are exactly what you'd expect from playing the demo. You know, they're good, they're functional, and they give a good sense of presence through the game so far. What I will say, I'm not going to be critical about the game, but for some reason with this, the game for me worked so well as a demo, as a short sort of 15-minute experience that I could play through in one sitting. For some reason, I just don't feel compelled to play this game at the moment. And as I say, I don't want to be critical about it because it is a good game. There's no doubt about it. But I'm just struggling to motivate myself, and it might just be a personal thing at the moment. You know, we go through these phases where we want to play all the latest VR games and we can't stop ourselves. We just want to get home from work and try these latest games, and then sometimes you have a bit of a lull. And for me, maybe it's something to do with that. We've got a bit of a lull in terms of game releases at the moment as well, so that could have something to do with it. But yeah, like I say, it's just a struggle for me to motivate myself to get back into this game. But when I am in it, I've got to say that the time I've put in so far, I'm enjoying it. And if you've played the demo, you know what to expect. There's certain little parts that are new from the demo as well. Just even in the first half hour of playing, there's certain things that are surprising and sort of carry you through while you're playing it. I can't really comment too much more than that, but I know, Steve, you've played it a little bit as well, so I don't know if you've got any other thoughts.
I kind of get what you're saying. Like, the game is really well done. It feels nice when you're in it. The kind of the cartoony world that they've created feels good, but yet I'm missing that draw. It hasn't put its hooks into me. I'm not super compelled to hurry up and get off this show with you guys and go upstairs and play it. And I'm not sure why that is, because it's good. I can't critique it. I can't say anything bad about it, other than one thing. And I did not play the second demo. I meant to, then forgot, and never went back to it. And I think I only briefly played the first one, so I don't know too much about the game. So I've played maybe 45 minutes or so, and I found that I don't really know what to do. It doesn't seem to hold your hand at all, which I'm okay with not holding your hand at all. But I just don't really know what to do. And I think it's a little bit frustrating. So that's a little bit of a critique, and it's, maybe I just need to, get over the learning curve. So as you're playing the game in its cartoony world, I'm sure most of our listeners have at least played the demo or have some general awareness of the game. But you, in your right hand, you have a teleport mechanism and this gun. I haven't really put it to use, but you seem to be able to create a bubble of some kind, but I don't know what the hell you do with it. Like, the game has not shown me. It's like, here you go, there's this thing. And then in your left hand, you can get what's a sort of equivalent to a sort of almost like a lightsaber. It's just this sword, and it really gives you some melee combat capability. And I've had to bat down a few drones so far. And the rest of its traversal, they did include a sort of an onward style locomotion in addition to the teleport. And something that I like is that both modes are active, so you can teleport here, but then decide to onward move over here. So you kind of have that on the fly flexibility, which is great. And we talk about options and locomotion options. Well, they took it a step further. They gave you both that are active on the fly simultaneously, which is cool. So again, I don't have too much to say. I am going to play it some more. I do know that or at least that I've read that there is a boss or bosses. So it gets deeper. you know, there is a narrative, there is a purpose of why you're in this facility. Maybe you're trying to get out. I'm not sure what we're trying to do yet, but there is a purpose, there is a backdrop, there is a setting. So yeah, I think it's good, and I think we just need to play it some more.
Yeah, I definitely need to pick this game up, man. I mean, I love the 2 demos. I love the music. I'm assuming the music is really good when you guys are playing it.
It is, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, for me, I guess it's just I'm kind of waiting for that moment where it's like, man, I really wish I mean, I really need to get a new game, and I'm still playing a lot of stuff that I kind of was halfway into over in December, basically. A lot of stuff that I was halfway into, but I never really got far into. So I've been screwing around with that, and I absolutely have to buy this game. I don't know why I'm lagging behind on that. Okay, so one game that all of us have played a little bit is Alice VR. And why don't I kick it over? Well, let's just go back to Gary. Gary, we all played this a little bit. I know we didn't play a lot of it, but what's your feelings on what you've played so far of Alice VR?
Well, for me, I mean, I was very, very impressed with the graphics. I think it is really impressive from that point of view, especially when you get down to the planet. I think it's got something about it that really, because I play a game called Solus Project, which, you know, it places you on this planet, and you can look up to the stars in the sky and see all these meteors and things like that, and that does it very well. But for me, this game just adds something extra where you're on this alien world, and it's sort of a daytime when you first get down there, and it just looks great. You know, it's very impressive graphically. Part of the reason I mentioned earlier about Vertigo, where I don't feel compelled to play it, and perhaps that's more of a personal thing at the moment, is partly due to this game as well, because for some reason, exactly the same as Vertigo, I just don't feel compelled to carry on with how far I've got. And as I say, I'm going to push myself through both of these games at least a little bit further, because I think they deserve that at least. One thing with Alice VR, it plays with this sort of theme of, it's a variation of Alice in Wonderland set in this science fiction world, really, where you start off on a space station and then you go down to a planet, and it follows all the main story beats of Alice in Wonderland. And I thought that was going to be a little bit more subtle than it actually is, because it's sort of very clear where you're going in this game and what it's all about. Just to say as well, at the beginning of this game, I experienced a few bugs. I think they were bugs. I'm pretty sure they were. They didn't work how I expected them to, but the game plays with scale quite a lot, especially at the beginning and possibly all the way through. But you find yourself shrinking down and going tall again. Now the bug I'm referring to in this, it's quite close to the beginning of the game, and when I felt like when you're going through this space station, it's almost as if you're floating. It doesn't really feel like you're walking through this space station. You feel like your height is a little bit too much, really. And you can see, you know, with the chaperone bounds, you can see the square on the floor, so you know where the floor is supposed to be. And this didn't match with that. As I progressed through this, and I shrunk down, and then I got bigger, that sensation got even worse. And by the end of that section, I was actually almost touching the ceiling within the game, and yet the scale within the game hadn't changed. So it wasn't like I was supposed to be huge or anything like that. It was just the fact that it was placing me too high. And so there were these small bugs. It didn't really bother me too much, because that section didn't last too long. But I just thought I'd quickly mention that. But yeah, overall, the game is okay. I wouldn't say, as I say, I'm not really compelled to play it at the moment, but I am going to push myself through and try and get as much out of it as I think it can offer, really, because it deserves. There's a lot of, you can tell there's a lot of work gone into this game in a lot of aspects of it, so I think it deserves a little bit more attention.
Hey, quick question. Do we know how much this game costs? Because I believe we were provided a code from the developer, so full disclosure.
I do not. It's 20 something, so it's either 25 or 29.99 USD.
Okay. Steve, you want to go ahead and talk about it for a little bit?
Yeah. You know, I probably played it more than Gary. You know, as he mentioned the bug on the spaceship, and I know the section he's referring to. So you have to kind of hit this button on a wall, and you shrink down and you shrink back up. I did not notice the scaling issue. When I shrunk down, I felt tiny, like maybe a mouse or so. And then when I shrunk back up, I felt the same. So at no point did I feel like I was, you know, close to knocking my head on the ceiling or anything. So maybe it was just a bug, and maybe when the game launched, it didn't grab your floor calibration. And I know that happens in some games. I've had it happen before, just not in this one yet. So the game starts out, and you're on the spaceship, space station, really, and you got to go through a few little puzzles, and it's really just masking to get you familiar with the locomotion and just kind of familiar with the game in general, the mechanisms. You know, touching on what we talked about in Vertigo, the game does feature both styles of locomotion, and then it has a teleport that was enabled in its latest patch, and then it has the trackpad locomotion. So I played with both. I've switched to teleport, and I like it a little better in this game. I started to feel a little bit of nausea. So I describe myself, I think I have my VR legs, and I can play a lot of games with thumbstick or trackpad locomotion without issue, but then occasionally there will be a game that just gives me issues, and I really don't know why. So anyways, I decided to switch to teleport. So you know, speaking of the quality of Alice VR, it is, you know, it's trying to push up on that AAA boundary. I have to assume the developers, Carbon Studio, that they have a multi-person team. They have artists, they have sound guys, they have you know, all sorts of things going on. So this is a quality game from a production standpoint. The graphics look good. The textures are really good. Some of the better textures I think I've seen on the Vive. Like when you shrink down and you're on the space station and you're walking in, it's kind of like a metal stainless steel duct. You can see the texture, and where it looks like it'd been wet or something. It looks really good. So, but the game itself, like the first 20-30 minutes you're on the space station, I thought the game was kind of lame. Like I was just like, okay, blah blah blah. Then you get down to the planet, and when you get on this planet, it has a very sort of Mars like reddish kind of dirt setting, and you meet a robot that is the equivalent of the I guess the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, and he's talking to you and he's telling you to do things, and you can find some audio recordings, and you kind of advance. And you work through a couple of puzzles. You get to a point where you get a vehicle, and driving the vehicle, it seems kind of weird. It took me a second to figure out actually how to drive it, but once you do, you're using the track pads or the touch pads to you know, just kind of navigate and steer the vehicle. So you know, the first hour, so you know, you're on the planet, and you know, nothing was really clicking, and then I put the game down, and then I picked it back up, and it started to get better. Some things started to open up. I got to this one point, and I ended up inhaling some gas, and basically it made you high, I guess, in the game. And this is where the Wonderland part began, and but you don't know it the first, you know. And next thing you know, you walk outside of this cave, and you look up, and there are great white sharks, you know, above you in the sky, and there's no water. They're just like air breathing great white sharks, and you're like, what the hell? And you advance a little more, and the next thing you know, you're no longer on this red planet. You're just in this if you ever played the short thing called The Cubicle, and you eventually leave the cubicle and you're just in this environment with all these squares, and it's just this random place. Well, you end up in a place like that. It's just like, what the hell is going on? 5 minutes ago I was on this desert-like planet with sharks swimming above me, and now I'm in this wherever it is. And then you keep advancing, and you find out that you had just, you know, done the equivalent of going down the rabbit hole. And so in the end, the gameplay, okay, this isn't a game really so much as it is a walking simulator or an exploration thing. And if you like that, and I haven't played Solus Project, and maybe it's similar in that sense, it's there. I haven't seen any combat. There's no indication that there's combat. There's no indication that, you know, there's going to be a racing part, even though you have this vehicle. There's no indication. This doesn't fit in any type of genre. It's not a shooter. It's really, it's just exploration. And I know some people really like exploration. You know, they're really into side quests and a lot of these RPGs and things like that. So me personally, I think I would prefer some combat, but I'm going to push myself and I'm going to play this game more. I shouldn't say I need to push myself. It's really about time. When I have time and I'm looking for something to play, I'm going to go back to Alice VR because it was good. It is good. It's just that it's a exploration walking simulator style game with some simple puzzles. It's like a interactive movie. You're supposed to just kind of experience the places that the visual artists have developed. So that's my take on the game. You know, I'm not sure I can recommend it at 25, 29 bucks, unless you're really into that genre specifically. You know, if you're a VR fan and you've loved Arizona Sunshine and Raw Data, you know, you may not love this game. But if you know that you like exploration and the walking simulator type experiences, then you probably like this one. It is really well done, as long as you know that going into it.
Yeah, so I played it that first day when I got the code. I played it and I got to the point where you see the sharks. So I got to the point where you actually get the gas and then you go out of there and you see the sharks in the sky. So that's as far as I got. And then I stopped. But my opinion of it, well, honestly, I have to say I was having maybe some performance issues, and I was having some parts of the game where I was feeling some nausea, and so I kind of had to stop a couple of times for that. But basically, I was in the game in the very beginning when you're in the space station. At first, I was like, oh, I really like this game. I like being in this space station and going down these halls and stuff. The halls look pretty good and opening up these different doors and stuff. I was actually enjoying that part quite a bit in the very beginning. But like Gary, I felt like I was floating about 2 feet off the ground. Like I was just a little bit too high. Like I'm not actually on the floor. With a lot of any game where they put you in that world and you're supposed to be in that world, I really want to feel like my feet are touching whatever the virtual ground is, you know? And so you're walking through that hallway. If you're playing Doom 3, BFG or whatever, you feel like your feet are on the ground. That's where you are. The height seems appropriate. Everything seems good. And you're going down the hallway and it feels good. But with this game, I felt like I was floating a little bit too high off the ground. Like it didn't have the floor calibrated right. And this is not even talking about the growing big or small. That's before you even get to that part. But it wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm still going through these hallways, and I liked the look of the hallways. In the very beginning, it almost reminded me of like a drift or something, like you're in a space station. And I thought, oh, it'd be cool if you go into a certain room and there's like cups that are floating, like an ant, gravity isn't completely up to par in a certain section of it. And I thought they could have did a little bit more with that. But when you're in the space station, after a while, it kind of got a little bit boring because all the hallways kind of look exactly the same. And it's almost like busy work. Like they're kind of sending you here. Okay, flip this switch, come back over here, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't super impressed with it after like spending a bunch of time in that little space station. Then you do the Alice in Wonderland thing where it's like you get big, you get small. And one thing I noticed with that, the couple of times that happened, is sometimes especially when you're getting bigger, it depends on where you're standing, like when you activate that, because what happens is you go into this automatic mode where it makes you big. And if you're standing too close to like a wall or something, when you trigger that, it's almost like you go up inside the wall a little bit as you're getting bigger. And that was kind of weird. I noticed that both when you got on the planet and then also the one time in the space station. But the idea of the game is cool. Steve was struggling to try to think of, well, what kind of genre is this? What I think it is that back in the 90s, you had PC games that were basically point and click type of games, and it's adventure games. You're pointing and clicking, you're kind of just moving around, and then you have to solve a puzzle. You solve a puzzle here, you solve a puzzle there. There's no real violence, there's no machine guns or anything. You're just kind of exploring something and you're solving little puzzles, similar to what we got with Robinson the Journey. Robinson the Journey doesn't have any real combat that I'm aware of. You're kind of exploring a place and then you're solving minor puzzles and then you're moving on. Now, the difference between Robinson the Journey and something like this is an incredible amount of polish, way better 3D audio, way better visuals, probably a studio that's like 10 times the number of people. So it's hard to make a comparison like that. But I kind of see this genre in VR as almost like taking a point and click game and putting it in VR, and it's kind of like an adventure game and you're exploring. And I actually like these games. I kind of wish that some of the people that made these games could maybe integrate a little bit of combat into it, so you can kind of combine the whole point and click style of exploring a world, but then have occasional combat areas. I think would be kind of cool. And I didn't see that in this game to the point where I got to it. But when I got to the planet, the surface of this planet, and I was walking around and there's rocks and stuff, the textures of the rocks were almost like popping in as I got closer to them. And I don't know if I was just having some performance issues because, you know, I do have a 970. I got an i5 2500K from like 7 years ago. So I might be at a point now where I kind of need to upgrade pretty soon. And some of these games, I might be having problems that nobody else is having. But when I was going through it, I was getting some nausea. I remember when I got into the car and I was driving that like dune buggy around, that felt a little bit weird. And there was just some weirdness to it for me, but it might have been 100% technical. So I kind of want to go back in there and try that. But I don't know. There was nothing about this that screamed like, oh, this is a great game to get. To me, it seemed kind of, I put it more with games like Dimensional and stuff, which a little bit more on the amateur side of it. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage the developer in any way. I'm sure that it takes tons of effort to make these games like this. But Steve was saying it's almost approaching AAA. Well, maybe it was just my technical issues and stuff, but I don't think it was approaching AAA in any way, shape, or form. To me, it's the kind of game where if this game was $15, I think, yeah, that's pretty good. At $25, I would probably say no. That's my personal opinion. They did provide the keys for us, and I truly appreciate that. But I would say it's okay. Nothing to write home about. But that's just my take. Okay, so let's see. Steve, was there anything else you had that you played that you could bring up?
Nope. I think that covers all the new stuff. You know, I've played a little bit of you know, some games we've already talked about. So, but yeah, nothing new here.
Gary, what about you?
Well, I'll just quickly mention one that I came across the other day. It's called The Price of Freedom. It's for the HTC Vive. It's free on Steam. It's by a developer called Construct Studio. And this was one of the ones that took me by surprise, actually, because I didn't know a lot about it, but it was free. So I thought I'd pick it up and give it a try. And it's very short, sort of 15 minutes long, but it's heavily narrative based. So you're basically working your way through this 15-minute story. If you were to put it in some kind of genre, I'd say it's an escape the room type game, but really the puzzles within this are very, very light. You know, you can work them out within a few seconds. They're not really puzzles. They're just things to slow you down, really. But the thing that it has going for it is the story. It's very good. You know, it's not the most original story in the world or anything, but by the time you get to the end of it, it has an impact, and it was very well presented. There's not a lot I can say negative about it, really, other than, you know, it's 15 minutes long, but it's a free little experience, and so I do recommend people go and try that. As I say, it's called The Price of Freedom, and yeah, a good little experience.
Alrighty. And for me personally, I have to say, you know what? I haven't really been playing anything new, and I need to get back onto that bandwagon of playing new games each week. We've on our channel, you know, we have been screwing around with doing the Let's Play videos. And so we have been adding more and more of those to our channel. And that's kind of what I've been working on actually in the last 2 weeks, really, is trying to basically develop like a workflow of how I'm going to record these videos. And I've been dealing with lots of technical issues. And so I've been kind of struggling with that. But I think I finally got things figured out. So now that I have that figured out, I should be able to bang out more of these videos and then have time to get back to just having fun with regular new games again, and also still being able to bang out these videos. So I've kind of been dealing with technical issues with that, but have it figured out a little bit. So hopefully that will be better. And I can say for anybody listening, if you guys haven't checked out our YouTube channel, you probably should check it out, because I think it's kind of funny to see us, you know, moving around and doing crazy stuff in our rooms and trying to play these games. You know what I never noticed, guys? I never noticed how much of a pot belly I have right now from maybe eating too much turkey over the holidays and, you know, all the different pies and things that you get over Christmas time. But setting up different cameras in my room to try to get different angles of me playing these games, I'm like, man, look at that big old pot belly on me. What's going on here? I need to play more Cyberpunk VR and get some more exercise. But has anybody else noticed that? Because we've all been doing these little Let's Plays.
Oh yeah, we go. I'll go through various positions to make sure I get the most flattering angle. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Likewise, I have not noticed your pot belly, but I've noticed mine. So yeah, it's, you know, I mean, anyone's self-conscious when they see themselves in video, and that whole camera adds 5 pound thing that you've heard your whole life. It's true. It's very true.
It's absolutely true. But if you guys want to see us looking like goofballs, you know, definitely check it out, because we are out there looking like goofballs, but we're having fun with it. It's interesting because I was talking with Steve just the other day, and we were kind of just chatting really quick about doing some of these Let's Plays. And Steve mentioned to me, it's like giving new life to some of these games, to play them from the angle where you're going into the game, but you're kind of trying to describe the whole process to everybody else. And it's like, if you've completed a game, if you've finished a game and you think you've done everything with that game, you could go in and do one of these videos, and it's almost like a completely new thing, like going for like an achievement hunter or something, where you get like a new goal. Steve, you want to talk about that for a sec?
It's like new game plus, you know, you have to focus on what you're doing so you don't look like a lame gamer, but also continue talking. So, you know, like you, I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I plan to go back and get videos up of a lot of the key games that have came out in 2016, and to continue to do them as new key games are released. And, you know, I'd like to also do some, you know, as we talk about them on the show. So, you know, somewhere around the time we get this video posted, I'll have a Let's Play of Alice VR, you know, since we talked about it this week. And, you know, I'm hoping that our viewers, you know, can see some continuity there and appreciate, hey, we're going to talk about this game, sort of give our unofficial review. We don't really do reviews, but, you know, we give our take on the game. And then, you know, also you can see what we're talking about, you know, when we talk about the shrinking and getting taller in Alice, for example. So, you know, I think it's a lot of fun, and, you know, I'm going to keep doing them, you know, hopefully everybody likes them.
Yeah, so we're going to continue to try to bring that content to the YouTube channel. And like I said, you know, maybe just take a look at it and see what we're doing there. And we're not always going to have like the most up-to-date games. We're not going to be the guys that have the newest game the second it comes out. We got to get this video up, and, you know, we're going to be dancing around acting like goofballs. But there's so many games that we've played, and we all have different experiences with them, and we all have different takes. And so it's kind of cool to get an inside view of how we play these different games. So maybe check that out if you guys get a chance. The only thing else I have to say is our email is vrroundtable@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and shoot us off an email. If you can post on the YouTube, I mean, if you can leave a comment on our YouTube page, like the videos, subscribe, you know, the whole rigmarole. That's great, of course. And we always say, of course, on the podcast, whatever podcast service you go through, if you can leave a review, that's good. Gary already mentioned that. Is there any other last minute tidbits we need to bring up?
No, I'm going to give a little shout out to R Steele on YouTube. He or she has taken an opportunity to comment in a lot of our videos, and, you know, just want to tell them that I appreciate it, that we appreciate it. So shout out to you, R Steele.
Gary, any last comments?
No, not really. Just echoing what both you and Steve have said. Really, we really appreciate any feedback we get, any reviews or anything like that. It is really sort of taken on board, and we can helps us to adjust the show and just keep providing content that you guys like.
Yep, that's pretty much it. All right, so that's basically going to wrap it up for episode 19 of VR Roundtable, and we will see you guys next week. Take it easy.
Cheers.
See you guys.
Bye.